Hello, welcome back to Nick Lenz's Comic Corner Classics / Non-Classics. This is episode number 86. No, this is not going to be a double shot. This is going to be a single shot episode. This episode we're reviewing Necrosha-X, a crossover that happened in the year 2009, and this trade, which is pretty much the collection of this entire event, plus a few additions, it collects New X-Men, Volume 232. I would say Volume 2 because they would have one published by Grant Morrison. This is Chris Yost and somebody else, the guy who wrote X-Force. X-Force / New Mutants, Necrosha The Gathering, which is a one-shot, X-Force Volume 3, Issues 11 and 21 and 25, X-Men Legacy 231 234, New Mutants Volume 3, Issues 6 through 8, and material from the X-Force Annual. And all the stuff in here is written, and the writers for these issues are Craig Kyle and Chris Yost. Now they write the X-Force New X-Men issue and the X-Force story for Necrosha. Mike Carey writes X-Men Legacy. Zeb Wells writes New Mutants issues. Now, pretty much, let's talk briefly about the other two things here. New X-Men 32 is simply the story of whatever happened to Wither. It's a one-shot story that came out a little over a year before the end of the series. This basically followed up exactly what happened to Wither after he left the school after the events of M-Day. Pretty much he met with Selene, made out with her, and they later had sex. Well, it was just a solo issue for him. Necrosha The Gathering, that's simply a one-shot that pretty much has several different stories dealing with how Selene met up with all different people. It's one of two times that Eli Bard, one of the members of Selene's Inner Circle, let's see, I want to get a good picture of her. Here. That's the main antagonist for this entire crossover. Yep. Now, let's see. Where's Necrosha? Let's see. Now her Inner Circle is made up of, this is the first issue, double-sized cover. The first issue is made up, where it explains that her Inner Circle is made up of Wither, the 616 version of Blink, before this I had never heard of him before, Mortis, who's the sister of Dazzler, and Eli Bard, a character created by Chris Yost and Craig Kyle. They also created the character Wither. Chris Claremont's the one who created Selene. Now this is what she looks like in the issue. Pretty much the whole point of this particular issue has three different stories in it. One, basically the story that pretty much starts out the entire crossover, and then the other two stories simply just spring out exactly what happens pages of New Mutants and X-Men Legacy. But pretty much the main story takes place pages of X-Force and New Mutants. New Mutants kind of take place around the events of X-Force for the first three issues, for the three-issue tie-in. They take place around the events of the first three parts of the X-Force part of it. X-Men Legacy is a side story where, I explained this in the X-Men Legacy in the Necrosha review, where they simply just go to Mirror and take on Proteus, which is the last time they see him. Now, in this particular issue, it opens up basically where Selene's talking to Inner Circle, and then they march on Utopia for some odd reason. And then they go inside Utopia. You see, in the X-Brig, you see Dazzler, Sebastian Shaw, Empath, who's former member of the NEAB, and you also have Donald Pierce, the guy who later dies in the following event, Second Coming. They're in the X-Brig, and they're all talking to each other. Because something is wrong, and all of a sudden turn the page, bam! Sebi Shaw, the son of Sebastian Shaw. It's explained in here that he was killed prior to this. Now, he was killed off-panel. He was killed by Sebastian Shaw, and guess who also showed up during this? Those of you who don't know this character, that's Harry Leland, the former Black Bishop of the Hellfire Club, who died during Chris Claremont's run on Uncanny X-Men. He died in his third appearance. Excuse me. Prior to this, he showed up in a couple issues of Sensational She-Hulk, where he was part of the X-Hunted. He got killed he died via heart attack. And even Bastion is surprised to see him because he's a merger between Master Mold and Nimrod. He's surprised to see him because he remembers him dying right in front of him. And then the other people show up. Of course, X-23 is trying to get their claws back in him. Somehow this happens of X-Force. And guess who else shows up doing this? The dead Halions. All but one members of the original Halions all dead. They're back. And then you turn a couple pages. And bam! Pyro and Berserker. Pyro died during the events of X-Men like he died toward the end. He died during the events of Dream's End, which is the conclusion to the events of trying to think. Oh yes, the Legacy virus. Berserker, I have no idea. I think he's Morlock. I barely know who he is. But the biggest shocker that comes back in this issue, we got John Proudstar, the original Thunderbird, the brother of Warpath. This is what he looks like. Okay, you got Kilbin, who died about a couple years first, so he's not been dead. He's not been dead very long. Unlike Thunderbird, he's been dead for a long time. I mean, he's been dead at this point for 34 years. So everybody who has died prior to this, he's the only one who's been dead the longest. Okay? Yeah. And of course, they're at Genosha. Genosha is where Selene makes base operations for this entire event. And of course, towards the X-Force, we have Vanisher, who is a member of X-Force. Now, Vanisher, those of you who don't know, he's an old X-Men villain who made a debut back in the second issue of the X-Men way back in 1963, and the issue was written by Stan Lee, and the art written by Jack Kirby. Yeah, he's part of X-Force because he was blackmailed to join, because Elixir put a tumor in his brain, so he had no choice but to join the group. Heck, the whole time he didn't know, and turn the page, and there's zero dead mutants go back. Pharaoh, Stonewall, Super Saber, Tower. I remember Tower. He's from even Darkstar. Darkstar from the Champions. That's her. They also have Hurricane, Spike, Deadbolt, Firefist. I've heard Wesley Collins. I'm surprised he was dead. I'm surprised the Pyro showed him this event. Yeah, people have battled like back and forth. And then the biggest shocker of all of these, the return of Banshee. One of his 3 returns over the years. He also returned in Chaos War, and he returned very recently Pages of Uncanny Avengers. When the life suit was put into him. They also put in here an old love interest of Warpath named Gloria Manus. I have no idea who she is. Yeah. Yeah. But, and of course, Archangel's fighting Pyro. Of course, this is what he looks like when he's that's the, they brought back via virus. And also basically someone named Wolf Prince, basically, who got Wolfbane pregnant. Yeah, basically this is a very interesting event. All of a sudden, the big shocker at the end of 21, the entire dead population of Genosha comes back. That's the end of issue 21. 22 is simply just more fighting. Someone named Nostalgic Teenage Warhead. I have no idea who this character is. So these characters really know who they are anyways. More fighting. That's issue 22, however. And in this issue, it's a cameo appearance, in a very small role, by Hela from the pages of Thor. This is her only time. This is the only time that she just one 2 times she's over an X book. The other time she's over the pages of X Factor. And of course she brings back the reason why she's there, because she wants to save the life of Brad Payne. That's what goes on in issue 22. 23, he brings her back, makes the deal. You want 2 souls? Fine. Change soul. So basically he asks her to bring back Elixir, which she does. Yeah. And Elixir heals up. Now, Wolfsbane and Elixir have an old relationship that goes back to the early pages, the early issues of New Mutants Volume 2, where they had a brief relationship. Despite the fact that Wolfsbane is about, I'd say, about 5-10 years older than he is. Yeah. And of course, after she later leaves X-Force after this event, she does return to pages of X Factor, where she gives birth to a son who is very obnoxious. Yeah. Then Cyclops sends Wolverine off to Genosha. Yeah, 2-part finale. And of course, the Inner Circle shows up, and then they explain who these people are. Let's see. I think it's by the third. Let's see. They actually give the blade, and of course, Eli Bard gets killed by Selene. Now, Eli Bard has got a slash relationship with Selene, and of course, Warworth fights his dead brother. He of course wins, but the big shocker of this issue, at the end of issue 24, is that let's see. Where's that big page? Yeah, everybody. Yeah, Selene's a god. This is what happens in the book. And this issue is also the death of Selene. This is what she looks like in here. Yeah, everybody's affected by it. Everyone's shocked by this. And there's actually a page in here of everybody getting infected by this. They had it where Stephen Strange, Doctor Doom, and Dr. Voodoo would actually felt this. This was a big shocker. And of course, Selene gets killed by Warpath, and that's that. Now, I don't need to tell what happens in pages of X-Men Legacy, because I've already done that. But, yeah. And of course comes the New Mutants tie-in, where Doug Ramsey comes back. This is the first time in years. He teams up with the Hellions to take on the New Mutants. And of course, also during this three-parter, they bring back not only Doug Ramsey not only comes back, but they also bring back Warlock. That's right, the alien Warlock. Warlock actually fixes Doug Ramsey up. Doug Ramsey also later joins Wolverine's Strike Force team. Yeah, pretty much, even though this is kind of a side story, the New Mutants thing, but it takes place around issues X-Force 21 and 25, 21 to 23. It takes place around those issues. And of course you have issue 11, which simply is the origin of Eli Bard, Necrosha Second Coming. Necrosha Gathering pretty much also explains that. Yeah, we're explaining issue 32. Good, everything's fine. Yeah. That's the whole point of issue 11. The story is called Who the Hell is Eli Bard? Yeah, so Warpath simply just explains his origin story. It's kind of also continued in the pages of Necrosha the Gallery. Now, doesn't this picture look familiar? Those of you who don't know this picture, this is a homage to the movie poster Vampires, a movie starring James Woods. I have seen the movie. The movie's pretty good. It gives the origin story of pretty much everybody who is pretty much how Selene meets these people. The first one she meets up with is Wither, which kind of takes place after the events of X-Men, New X-Men number 32, how he joins the team. And then you have Blink, she's next, in terrible looking artwork. I don't like this artwork at all. Looks so weird. And then comes Sequoia, who looks like this for some odd reason. Yes. Meets up with her. The next comes Morris London, who is Dazzler's sister, where she kills her father, and she later teams up with Selene. And then the last story in this whole book, this whole one shot, is basically Eli Bard's origin story. Kind of basically, it continues from X-Force 31. It kind of just continues on from that. Explains more of his origin story. Then finally, the last part of the book is, of course, the thing ends simply the same way that X-Force ends, where she gives Kilban as a gift to Selene, or solidify his allegiance to her. Then comes, I think it's the first story in the pages of X-Force Annual. I didn't read a second story. It's just simply just a call on Deadpool. It's just simply what Deadpool was doing. It's a funny little side story. Yeah, it has really nothing really much to do with it. Okay, but overall for this book, I give this book a, because this is a fun event and it has terrific art.